With the blessings of Honorable Founder President Sir, under the visionary and dynamic leadership of Honorable Chancellor Sir, with the valuable guidance of Honorable Vice Chancellor Ma'am, and with the encouragement of our respected Director Ma'am, I, on the behalf of Amity Institute of Social Sciences, would like to welcome you all to the technical session 6 of the 2-day conference on social and political institutions, human rights, and global justice perspectives from India and Europe. As the moderator of this session, I am pleased to welcome you this incredible opportunity of intellectual learning, reflecting, and sharing. Our mission is to provide all in attendance with the most informative and enlightening experience possible. To achieve this goal, we have assembled a roster of influential speakers who represent the best and brightest in their respective fields. The theme of this session is media, innovation, and socio-cultural dissent. With this theme, we are going to discuss how the advanced technology of communication have brought influences and impacts on cultures. We have seen that media have always crossed the boundaries of cultures due to the concepts of borderless. So to this entire session, we would also get to understand the factors of cross-cultural communication, social influence theory, and so on. So without taking much time, I would like to introduce our session chair, Dr. Sudha Khokake. She is the professor of Department of Sociology in Bangalore University. She has completed higher education, MA, MPhil from JNU and PhD from Gulbarga University. She is a member managing committees of ISS. She has 14 years of teaching experience. Her area of research specialization is gender, health, and education. She has published articles in various journals. She has also presented papers and participated at national and international conferences. She was also invited as a speaker and chaired many sessions at various conferences. She is an active member of Karnataka Sociology Association, and she is also a convener of RC March 6 marginal groups, weaker sections, and human rights of KSA. She also works as an expert for an NGO called Sakhi, which works on Devdasi children and rehabilitation in Karnataka. So we welcome you, ma'am. We also have the co-chair of the session. Thank you, ma'am. Co-chair of this session, Dr. Deepak Kumar. He is the head of the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, Patiala University. So now I would like to invite our first speaker who is waiting since long time. So I would like to call Mr. Placido Antonio. He's a research scholar from the University of Florence. He will talk on religion. So welcome, Antonio.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thank you very much to you. Can I start?
Yes, please start. I just want to ask the university, how much time are we giving the speakers to talk?
Yeah, 10-15 minutes. It's okay for you?
Ma'am, we can have 10 to 12 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Anthony, you can start.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, dear professor, dear friend, I present to you some line of research and some conclusion that come from my PhD thesis discussed at the University of Siena in Tuscany, in Italy, as a part of the doctorate in learning and education in the social context and in the workplace. So I speak to you about new scenarios for religious diversity in the workplace in Italy and around the world. So the theme of religious diversity in the workplace is a part of the broader framework of diversity management studies. The theme of religion, relevant for its multiple values, identity, culture, rules of life, sphere of values, interests the working world as a daily and significant place of meeting, welcome, knowledge, discussion, and integration. Company managers, in fact, should not underestimate the subject for a series of aspects related not only to the prevention and management of conflict in the workplace, but to promote the inclusion, including social, of employers, the manifestation of their identity, corporate well-being. However, even though over the last few decades there have been more and more studies on the subject, to the social relevance of the issue has recently been strongly questioned. I remember Hallowell arrested in 2020. This appears to be linked above all to empirical studies which, in Europe, have not returned a quantity of data capable of framing the phenomenon on a large scale. So, in this context, I remember the barometer from 2021. And to start a more general discussion, it is necessary to find common points from which to start and develop the investigation. The research questions are: how does the world of work and companies specifically address religious pluralism? So, what device and measures does the employer implement to prevent and manage any conflict arising from different religious beliefs? What are the requests and expectations that employers place on the employer to better live their identity of belief, and how are they present in the contract collective agreement nature of labor in Italy? Therefore, the thematic area fits into the broad framework of diversity management and moving from the position of the sociology of religion, intended to move toward a general knowledge of the orientation of the Italian legislator and to the legislator of labor, as including the analysis of company cases. So, our methodology, the first difficulty that presents itself to researchers is of a terminological nature. The semantic field of religion ranges from the most strictly dogmatic one to that of religiosity to that of spirituality, and French studies prefer to speak of faith religieuse, to this Anglo-Saxon tradition to which socially settled phenomena are linked that have somehow distanced themselves from those aspects that can be associated with the religious fact in the strict sense. For example, not subordinating oneself to the directives given by a woman. Muslim women in Europe have increasing rate of employment or the wage inequality. There is also no structured European reference text that dictates the rules of integration of employers with different religious belief in company. The individual state, with their own legislative instrument, have tried to incorporate the phenomenon. In Italy, corporate directives are more than a few national collective agreements, and in the latter period, several credit institutions have promoted anti-stigmatizing and anti-discrimination attitudes. In France, there are provisions that seek to regulate the management of the religious fact even in private companies. So in the Ministère du Travail in 2018 or Observatoire de laïcité 2018 too. However, these provisions are formulated with reference to national regulation, including restrictive one, as in the case of Muslim veil standard that have no place in German law. At this point, the immigration history of the states also plays a fundamental role in the thematization of the problem. The barometer survey depends and incorporates, but sometimes overlooks, as in the case of food in company canteens, specific aspects that are sometimes not seen in all states. However, a common aspect emerges that is that the religious fact is sometimes a matter considered very intimate, and this for a series of reasons. The first fact is that the employer leaves his creed in private way, and sometimes does not intend to participate in it to avoid attitudes that can lead him to marginalization. There is also the preference for professional accomplishment rather than professing a faith. Sometimes the belief that labor policies are linked to a radical secularism, but also a deeper general reason emerges that has to do with power relation. Those who are in the minority with respect to widespread feelings sometimes do not have an authoritative voice capable of making themselves to listen. It has been said that foreign works in Italy are necessary but not welcome people and are characterized by a displaced identity and are subject to form of labeling. In Italy, our immigration has a recent history, and an investigation cannot ignore studies produced in countries with a longer immigration history. So my result, issues relating to deprivation and management of conflict generated by religious diversity in the workplace essentially arise in the context of employment and are already present in various company agreements. Starting from the terminological question, we would like to propose some point of observation, not exclusively, however, capable of identity a progressive level of comparison with religious diversity. First one, regulate religious holidays and weekly day of rest. Second, times, spaces, and method of prayer. 3. Food from company canteens, food selection, fasting time and period. 4. Religious dress and employer interests. Then there are all those issues connect with the symbols that cannot spaces and people and related interpretative context.
Also, I would request you to please conclude.
Sorry?
I would request you to kindly conclude your.
Yeah. Okay, so my conclusion. The question of space of religion in work is the image of the place that religion has in society. The full integration of the person passes through the freedom to manifest the belief as an essential aspect of one's identity. The employee's social spaces passes from the workplace. It is up to management to foster this process in a perspective that can go behind the policy of individual nation state in the synthesis that knows how to value diversity and promote a broad form of well-being. To the topic of religious diversity in the workplace, despite the progressive attention and transversality of the question raised, find itself dealing with changing and sometimes conflicting scenarios on the international level. We oscillate between a de facto reaction of the discourse in the name of generalist legal recognition and between those who even make integration as a question of marketing in the most open expression. But how does the Italy of the world witness its internal social transition and think of new image path in a time of deconstruction of tradition stereotypes? We sometimes see a scientific bibliography that's not entering in dialogue of large scale, as well as legal guidance at little of a local scale. So in this contribution, we tried to propose a sample survey of well-known company financial statement in order to verify the presence of items that concern diversity management, in particular for items relating to the integration of workers with a different religious belief, and to find at what level and in which sector does the SU find its greatest trade union protection. The best questions remained whether the image that emerges photography Italy in its cultural transition and in its changing identity factor. The real challenge is to reach extra-national line of intervention in the file of labor legislation in individual state, which is still too tied to particularist aspect and too little to broader horizon. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah, hi ma'am. I would like to go next to present. This is Melissa.
I just have to ask the University Amity, how is the session going to be like? Do we take the questions in the end of the
Yes.
paper presentations?
If We are taking the questions at the end of the session.
Okay.
All right. So I would like to
Can I go next, ma'am?
Melissa. She is the research scholar from University of Mumbai, and she is going to present a paper on women representation in Indian advertisements through the male gaze. All right. Please, over to you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for this opportunity. Yeah, thank you for this opportunity in letting me present at
Sorry
your
for the
prestigious
interruption,
seminar.
Melissa.
I would
Before
like to.
we start the
Yes.
session with your paper, I would like to invite Dr. Deepak Kumar. He is the head of the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, and from Patiala University. He is the co-chair of this session. So, welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, over to you, Melissa.
Yes, good morning, sir. And yes, thank you for having me present at your prestigious seminar and accepting my paper. I would like now to start with my paper that is titled Women Representation in the Indian Advertisements Through the Male Gaze. A little background into the paper. When we try to understand the representation in the advertising world, it has definitely evolved through time. And there has been a greater emphasis or a response and a need in the shifting expectations or preferences of advertisements in Indian among Indian viewers. So my focus is basically on the conventional or the stereotypical advertisements that the gender roles or the behavior patterns that are associated with women, and through culture, through continuity, how does it illustrate women in a certain objectified way that satiates the male gaze. So this is about the background of my paper as to how women portraits are idealized through the images of beauty, sexual appeal, and objectification of submissive visuals that have caught the attention of scholars and writers from all across the genre of media. So my paper is basically trying to focus on the idea of advertisements being used as tools to disseminate information and raise awareness, but the representation of women, how has it changed over time? The aspects of general acceptability. So that was a little background into my paper. Now, when we talk about the review of literature within my paper, I have researched a few research articles that mainly focus on the aspects of mass media and how it has been a globalized phenomenon. How does it encompass from digital media changing? The changing gender is women have always been compelled to in ads to perform their sexuality, and which is explicit or implicit, that is reflected through commercial platforms. So the formation of women's identities and the extent to which these constructions occurs have adversely affected the lives of these women. So what is the transition when we see that in terms of representation? So this paper has tried to focus more on the theoretical explanations of how women have been positioned in the act of seeing through the male gaze, right? And when we try to understand the aspects of male gaze, what is it focusing on? Viewing women, as objects, or looking at them through the sexual appeal or the representation. So after comprehensive examinations of these research articles, there are specific advertisements that focus on the gaze framework that is incorporated within the aspects of gaze. So trying to understand that perspective is the focus of my paper. The formation of women's identities and the extent to which this construction has affected their lives. So the methodology, the understanding of women's objectification of her body through the male gaze, and also trying to understand the perplexities of her very being. So the body of a woman is considered to be, through these ads, the object of lust and consumption for a male audience. So through the male gaze, so she is treated as an entity of pleasure. So the objectification theory that I have used in terms of looking at the aspects of positioning of women in society as being objectified, treated as an object for for the aspects of how her sexuality is continuously controlled. So the portrayal in a very belegislative way, or in terms of the aspects of body. So that is what my the aspects of methodology was. Now the representation of women and femininity. Women have definitely had a narrow aspect of representation in media in terms of domestication or the private sphere, whether they are seen in detergent ads or soap ads, or as in nurturing roles, whether it is in baby products that the advertisements carry out, while men have been used in powerful ads like cars or banking. And we see that this case of women and femininity as sex objects or through entertainment to please the male audience in terms of clothing, dressing, bodily language, facial expressions, colors, all of these aspects of dynamics that have been used in terms of representation. So, when we try to understand the aspects of women in media and the representation through the male gaze, I think the patriarchal aspect of society that depicts women as objects to attract the consumers. And I think the theoretical big screens also considered that aspect compared to television space in Indian advertisements, especially how they've been portrayed without the aspects of identity. And that is something that is important when we keep in mind the depiction of women, right? The moral oppression of being forced as objects of desire in a very ethical way. So in Indian advertisements, of course, that aspect is seen to be every time displayed, right? And the aspects of physical aspects in terms of achievement is seen in those dynamics. So when you try to understand in analysis, I have looked at the sexual objectification or the portrayal of women as objects of desire, whether it is ads where they are scantily clothed, right? And these ads are used to sell the products. So or advertisements for beauty products are often highlighted in terms of the importance given to say fair skin, or depicted of women in of different skin tones as unattractable or undesirable. So these brands have taken I would say a step in representation of women, and there's still a long way to go, right? So when we talk about the aspect of equality, this also needs to be authenticated in the message that they are conveying to the larger audience. So the aspects of companies going beyond the simply just talking about diversity, but in the advertisements or in the marketing campaigns, making a concise effort to address the underlying issues of gender inequalities within our society. So I think that aspect is very, very important when we try to keep in mind the process. So of course things have changed a little bit in terms of the aspects of advertisements, right? So earlier in, I would say, the times where television took control over the house, the aspects of homemakers unconsciously attracting advertisements, in terms of the aspects of the inferiority complex that that was portrayed among women. So when we talk about Indian advertisements, the aspects of portraying a certain message without keeping in mind her self identity or her confidence, right? In terms, rather than just focusing on the physicalities of her sexuality or sexual identity and or achievements. So the aspects of how now her portraying the role of submissive or a dutiful mother, or being lovable and tolerant to the children. So this aspects of portrayal is very important. And like I spoke about sexual objectification, there are so many ads in terms of the clothing, in clothing brands, or say, for example, in perfume brands. And this has now changed in terms of the advertisements to a great extent. So the aspects of sexual objectification to now looking at empowerment, right? So there has been a shift, of course. In my concluding aspects, I focused on the shift from objectification to empowerment of this woman. So the beauty being replaced by now by bravery or by independence. And this reason for shift is definitely the focus on modern women, focus on empowerment rather than just on the physical appearance. So this fight for gender equality is definitely spreading through the fields of media and of course the aspect of equality struggle, right? So and we can see that now women are being showed in the light of their strength, or yeah, the nature of being seen as equal. And consumer I would say perspective has also changed, right? Where women are now also being seen in female centric ads, and the marketing tactics have also moved from objectification or the aspects of glamour to now being self-assured, right? Whether it is now men being part of the detergent ads or home appliances ads and all of those. So there's a huge shift from objectification to empowerment, and that focus is not showing the emphasis on her, or just on her beauty, or just on her aspects of sexuality, but also being able to take care of herself and the need to protect and take care of her health and safety. So that is, equally that is an important shift that we see, being able to be multifaceted, and being able to finish. Her work, or being seen as a working person, right? So the advertisements are beautifully portraying now through the same lens in terms of the balancing role that women can play. So that shift has been some, I mean, a progressive aspect, right? So when we try to understand that, this change that is worked in terms of the shifting cultures, right? So many advertisements have changed the kind of approach that we use or we have towards the objectification of women, and looking at that in terms of also empowerment. And even if it's the hammam soap ad, the portrayal of women first was using the soap ad to protect the family, or to protect the girl child from harassment. But now we see that has also changed, where she's trying to talk about the aspects of using martial arts as a technique to protect her or care for her. And if she, so the aspect of caregiving is also now a change in the shift, where caregiving is also being done by men, right? So the aspect of how the role of women have been changing because of education, self-respect, and economic independence. So uh, that is a huge shift in terms of looking at the patriarchal notions, from treating women as glamour dolls or the accessories that have been seen by the male gaze, but now her ambition shifting to strength and breaking off the gender norms, right? So that visibility is now clearly an aspect that Simone de Beauvoir talks about in terms of expression, or the forms of women in response to the social constructions, or the notions of constructions in a hierarchical society. So the aspects of empowerment, have been seen now as not just only a natural process, but in terms of media also taking a sharp turn in the use of strategies for promotion of their products. So this natural process of change that has been brought about is a significant change towards liberation, towards empowerment. So that is what my paper basically talks about in terms of empowerment lying in the roots of gender equality within the aspects or within the dynamics of advertisement. So advertisements definitely have changed that perspective, of changed the way they look at ads. And I would say the modern media is also changing in viewing women in that light, right? So the change is definitely a welcome for the initiatives to project women as equals. So my limitations of this paper, because of the aspects of time, I would say that carrying out research within a short period of time was one of the biggest limitations, and also understanding the changing dynamics of women's role in one spectrum of media, that was ads, rather than just seeing it as an overall, was also a challenge. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. Now I would like to invite Ms. Rupali Rupajita Mohanty. She's from the Department of Political Science, Behrampur University, Odisha, and she's going to present a paper on media representation of homosexuality, a critical inquiry of contemporary India. Over to you, Rupali.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, can I share my PPT?
Yes, please.
Thank you, ma'am. So yeah, my topic is on media representation of homosexuality, critical inquiry of contemporary India. So basically, the term homosexuality can be understood as a characteristic of being attracted solely to the people of one's own sex. And the discussion on this community is considered to be a topic of taboo in our society, due to which this community is forced to lead a life of humiliation. However, in the recent time, it is the attitude towards this marginalized group has changed slightly with the decriminalization of 377. But the exploitation invisibility still persists in all aspects of their life, and the issue frequently get ignored in the mainstream media and political discourses. And by repeatedly representing certain identities while ignoring others and making them appear unfamiliar and scary, the media changes the perspective of identities and groups. So, in this presentation, I have divided this presentation into three parts. First, I will be discussing on legal status of homosexuality, then homosexuality and media, and finally, I will be taking two case studies. So, the study I have used the content analysis to understand the media representation of homosexual community during the same-sex marriage hearing. I have used secondary sources that include major books and articles, news coverage, and social media posts. The study critically engages with the media information to identify themes, stereotypes, representation, and narratives regarding the lesbian and gay people, with an emphasis on the time period around the same-sex marriage hearings. So, the legal status of homosexual community in India, as Ruth Vanita, Nivedita Menon, and Mati Menon, and other queer theorists has argued that the homosexuality was acceptable prior to the colonial period, and it was only during the mid 18th century the colonial masculinity and patriarchal heteronormative ideas were introduced by the Britishers through Section 377. And Section 377 was drafted by Thomas Macaulay, which reads as follows: whoever voluntarily has carnal intercourse against the order of nature, any man, women, shall be punished with the imprisonment of life or with imprisonment of either description of a term that may be extended to 10 years and shall also be able to fine. And the rapid spread of AIDS in the 1990s made the discussion more urgent. And the 377, the section 377 was decriminalized in the year 2009 by the Delhi High Court. It was again recriminalized in 2013 by the Supreme Court. In 2018, it was finally decriminalized, and now the status is the homosexual the homosexual relationship are open, and there is no legal bound to it. But however, when it comes to same-sex marriage, the law does not give any proper mention to it, leaving it in a status where it is neither acceptable, neither legal and nor banned. And this year, on April 18, the Supreme Court of India began considering a series of petitions seeking for the same-sex marriage recognition. And in February 2022, the central government filed an affidavit in Delhi High Court opposing the legal recognition of marriage equality, claiming that the same-sex marriage is not compatible with the Indian family system. And on March 13th, three-judge bench declared the case constitutional significance and referred it to a five-judge constitutional bench. And the central government filed objection, terming the marriage equality as an urban elitist phenomenon. So then homosexuality and news media. So there are many factors that have contributed to the visibility of this community, and to some extent, media has also contributed. And due to globalization, marketization, and privatization in the 1990s, the Indian television shifted from a government to commercial channels, which then led to the normalization of showing certain forbidden topics on the mainstream media. And as Ruth Benita has argued that since the 19th century, the Indian media has depicted the lesbian marriages as a consequences of societal injustices rather than celebration of love. Says that for example, she says that when the the lesbian couples are seen marrying, the one woman is considered to be a victim of child marriage and the other one is shown as a victim of domestic violence, rather than celebrating it as a love, as a marriage, as the marriage as a consequences of their love. It is shown as a marriage as a consequences of some victim. So portraying a victim narratives to it. She further said that there is a lack of in-depth coverage or analysis of this particular theme. So I have taken the case studies. First is the Sudhir Chaudhary's prime time debate, Black and White, where he openly disseminated misinformation concerning the homosexuality. His coverage included homophobic statements and plots, inciting fears in a viewer about the LGBT community in general and homosexual community in particular. Throughout the show, he attempted to alert people against the homosexual community, praise the union government arguments, promoted falsehood about the homosexual community, and reinforced patriarchal attitudes, gender stereotypes, and religious conventions. So these are some of the examples how he depicted the same-sex marriage hearing by the Supreme Court. And what is problematic here is that in his show, he said that same-sex marriage is a first world problem, ignoring the fact that they have in several countries like Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and South Africa who have legalized homosexual marriage and don't even belong to the first world country. It further reinforces the stereotype that same-sex marriage are Western import and an elitist idea. But in the Ruth Venita's work, she has clearly mentioned that in some of the cases, not only the family came to support, but the whole village came to support the same-sex couples. Then he says that then the next thing he does is that he attributes the whole show mainly to the religious cultural value while completely ignoring the fact that the homosexual couples are denied the basic rights such as adoption rights, economic rights, etc. So this is the case of Sudhir Chaudhary, and the next case study um, is on trolling of CJI Chandrachud for making statement that favored the queer issues. He said that there is no absolute idea of male and female, and this sparked a series of trolling against the CJI, where he was called as an anti-national, anti-Hindu, terrorist, and etc. This is problematic as the social media, rather than providing a space for constructive debates and discussions, has become a hub for spreading false news, disinformation against certain communities. So yeah, the use of homophobic and anti-queer and anti-feminist posts are uploaded in the forms of memes and roastings, videos, and this culture appears to be very normal in the virtual world as well as in the real world. And anyone opposing to it is tagged as anti-national, anti-Hindu, and etc., and are threatened, bullied, harassed online. So, and as per Agarwal and Pal's study, the online hatred and trolling of CJI came from mostly the right-wing sympathizers, which is absolutely problematic. So, finally, I want to conclude my presentation by saying that whether through social media or through news media, the disinformation has been spread against the homosexual community by certain section of our society in order to maintain the status quo. Thank you.
Thank you, Rupali. Now, I would like to call Mr. Harshit Garg. He's the research scholar of Amity Law School, Amity University, Noida. He's going to present a paper on the power of pixels, media, films, OTT, and internet as catalyst for change. Do we have Harshit?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Ma'am, I would like to share my screen. I want to show my PPT. Ma'am, shall I start?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Good morning, one and all present here. Firstly, I would like to thank the organizing team of Department of Sociology for organizing such an insightful session and considering my paper for presentation. Today, I would dive into the fascinating and complex world of media and its profound impact on our society. In today's rapidly changing world, where we can face volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, often referred as VUCA, the role of media as agent of change has never been more significant. Well, we will explore how media shapes our perception, influences gender norms, and serves as a tool for propaganda and social change. Let us begin by discussing the transformation of media in our world. With the advent of digital technology, media has evolved into a dynamic and multi-faced force. Social media, citizen journalism, and live streaming empowers individuals to be both consumer and content creator at the same time. This
Excuse me, sorry for interruption, Mr. Harshit. Can you please switch on your video, please? It'll be better if we can also have you on the video.
okay, sir. I thought I was visible in the video. Sir, give me a second, please.
Yeah, please.
Sir, I am unable to start my video, sir. I am trying.
No problem. Please carry on.
Okay. Uh, this democratization of media has given rise to socio-culture where voices once marginalized find a platform to express their grievances and advocate for change. However, this innovation also presents challenges such as misinformation and echo chambers. Now, let us explore how media, include violent content, can shape individuals' behavior and perception through a psychological phenomena known as priming. The concept of priming involves the activation of individuals' related mental model after exposure to a particular stimuli. When we consume media, especially the violent content, it can desensitize us to violence and normalize it as an everyday phenomena. For instance, the action movie often portrays low interesting heroes who use physical fight to assert their righteousness. Scientifically, such narratives have been found to desensitize us to accept violence, and in consequences, we got influenced through that. Now, let us turn our attention to the intersection of gender with media influence. Let us take the example of movie Kabir Singh. In that recent movie, the character sanctions abuse and violence in the name of reinforcing masculinity. Such narratives perpetuate harmful stereotypes and violence, and media can't be blamed entirely for that. But it certainly plays an important role in shaping this perception, but they are not the sole factor for that. Media's role in perpetuating traditional gender roles and stereotypes is undeniable. For years, women has been portrayed as passive, nurturing, and defined primarily by their physical appearance, while men are portrayed as dominating, assertive, emotional descent. The and television often depict women as homemaker and man as provider, reinforcing their roles. These portrays limit opportunity for both men and women in real life and reflecting and shaping their societal attitudes. Media often serve as a mirror reflecting the societal attitudes and biases. It is crucial to understand that media doesn't exist in isolation. It's a product of culture and society it has emerged from. But Critically analyzing the media content, we can gain insight into the prevailing attitudes and values. These analysis encourages us to think deeply about the complex relationship between the media and the culture. Now, let us understand how film and OTT platforms serve as tool for both propaganda and social change. Films have long used for propagate ideologies and manipulate public opinion. They can distort facts and manipulate emotions. On the other hand, OTT content can also inspire dissent and social change. However, in today's world, only documentary and independent film through independent filmmakers provide a platform for marginalized voices and shed light on societal injustice. Lastly, let's highlight the internet's role in activism, advocacy, and in global solidarity. The social media movement, like Black Lives Matter, Me Too movement, has harnessed the internet's reach to mobilize millions and effect tangible change. However, the internet also poses challenges such as the spread of disinformation and online harassment. It's crucial for us to navigate the digital realm with media and literacy, resulting truth from propaganda and advocating the positive change. In conclusion, the media's influence on our society is undeniable and far-reaching. It shapes our perception, behavior, and societal norms. It has power to both perpetuate harmful stereotypes and inspire positive change. Media is not a passive reflection of our world, it's a dynamic force that can shape and reshape it. To combat the negative influences of media, we can engage in its meaningful discourse and challenge harmful representations and advocate for more inclusive and equitable media landscape. Media literacy is our like shield against the manipulation, while advocacy drives positive change. Together, we can shape a media landscape that reflects our diverse world and foster progress. As we navigate this ever evolving media landscape, let us remember that media is a tool, and how we can use it, it's on in our own hand. How we can use it to change our society for the betterment of the people. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Harshit. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Vatsala Mishra and Ms. Anurag Roy. They're the research scholars from the Symbiosis International University, Pune, and they're going to present a paper on celluloid's echoes, analyzing cinema's influence on dissent, propaganda, and human rights in European and Indian societies. Do we have Vatsala?
Good morning, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, over to you.
Yeah, Anurag here. So I'll be presenting, as both of us has discussed that one of us will be presenting. So the title, we are research scholars from Symbiosis International Team University, and Vatsala is my co-scholar, and we both have written this paper. The title of our paper is Celluloid Echoes, Analyzing Cinema's Influence on Dissent, Propaganda, and Human Rights in European and Indian Studies. So I'd like to start the discussion of my paper by saying that cinema is one of the most vital weapon to shape people's mind, because considering that very few people read newspaper, cinema immediately becomes a very effective means of spreading information and getting popular consent. So our paper starts by making a distinction between world cinema and Hollywood. So world cinema refers to the regional cinema in different pockets of the world. It tries to picture a distinct alternative image of the world where notions of identity, nationhood, and culture are discussed. So this thing is an ongoing debate in cinema studies, that how world cinema is doing really great at the Academy Awards with the recent films like Bong Joon-ho's Parasite and Winterberg's Another Round, and even All Quiet on the Western Front. These movies are picked and selected by the uh, Academy Awards, which shows that there is a popular acceptance of these films in the global audiences. And then even in world cinema, we have specially picked uh, two cinemas, Indian cinema and European cinemas, to align with the theme of this seminar. So Indian cinema explores the diverse subcontinent, Indian subcontinent, with its myriad cultures, languages, and traditions, while on the same hand, European cinema delves into the layers of history and identity of diverse nations. Then the paper also tries to define what exactly is propaganda. So defining propaganda in films could be a daunting task because all films are generally political. They have a hidden message, and you need the eyes to see what exactly are the message, or you need the right mind to decode what is being presented to you. So the paper has utilized certain key thinkers in defining propaganda. The top, like the thinkers like Walter Lippmann, and then you have Harold J. Laswell, who is a pioneer in media and communication studies, and you also have Noam Chomsky. So Noam Chomsky is a very contemporary thinker, but the focus is generally on Laswell and Lippmann. So Laswell's book in the year 1927, which is titled Propaganda Techniques in World War I, is a paradigm shift in the field of cinema and media studies. His theory of propaganda blended ideas from behaviorism and Freudianism into pessimistic vision of media and their role in forging modern social order. So Lippmann and Laswell, they both shared the vision and skepticism about the ability of average people to make sense of their social order, to make like rational decisions or the things they are carrying out. They both felt that humans do not have the right mind to understand what is being shown to them. And they felt that the power of propaganda was not so much about the like the result of the substance or appeal of specific messages, but rather it is the result of the vulnerable state of mind of an average citizen of a nation. Beyond this, they also felt that propaganda doesn't mean that a few well targeted messages would bring down a complex democratic social order, but they were of the view that the communicators, they need a well developed and a long term strategy to carry out certain propagandas. And he gives the example of respecting a flag, a national flag. This notion has been cultivated in the minds of the citizenry over a long time. And he describes it as a master symbol. A master symbol is basically established through education, through things that are being shown through cinema and through popular calls. So Lippmann and Laswell, they both believe that once this master symbol is established, then it can be used in different types of propaganda. And we can see the examples like how political figures, they continuously use the case of the flag during their political campaigns as a means of suggesting that the political candidate are patriotic and that they can be trusted to defend the nation. So on similar this theoretical construct, we have then picked up movies through content analysis from both Europe and India. So I'd like to first discuss about the European context. So this propaganda was used in Leni Riefenstahl's movie Triumph of the Will. It is like the pioneer movie when we discuss about propaganda or propaganda studies. So Triumph of the Will acted as a very conscious propaganda tool within the context of the Nazi Germany. The movie, it for the first time acknowledged the role of citizenry and their personal stake in any war's outcome. So generally, governments now felt the need to galvanize their populations, making appeals to national pride and loyalty, and asking for loyalty from their citizens. So it was a kind of seismic change. And almost all scholarly articles on the Triumph of the Will have mentioned that Dr. Joseph Goebbelianism is a term in cinema studies. It is like a propagandic term, where we see that Dr. Joseph Goebbels, he was the third Reich Minister of Propaganda and Public Enlightenment, and he openly supported the cause of the film Triumph of the Will. Like, he promoted and he propagated the ideas of Hitler through that film. And we also acknowledge that with propaganda, there's also a counter propaganda running symmetrically with it. So just 5 years after Triumph of the Will, we see that Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator is released, which portrayed the dehumanizing horrors of war and the senseless sacrifice of very young soldiers during World War I. And also we see that modern parallels could also be drawn from it. For example, if we see that the movie All Quiet on the Western Front and related to the grim realities of the Russia-Ukraine war, we can say that the portrayal of young Russian soldiers being sent to the nation's Western Front against Ukraine, it draws very poignant parallels with the film's narrative, where in the film All Quiet on the Western Front, young men were also sacrificed in a similar futile and lost war. And we can also argue that the theme that is presented through All Quiet of Western Front is the reason that the Academy Awards has rewarded it certain nominations and finally awarded it as the best international feature. And then with respect to the Indian context, Vatsala has written that India is a country with diverse masses, and a rich country with such history cannot move without propaganda in its movies. So the first instance in the Indian context of propaganda was the photographs taken by Hilton Goodwood during the colonial time. He was the official cameraman whose work was sponsored by the British Raj. And his motive was the portrayal of a generous British Raj which cared for its soldiers during World War I if the soldiers cared for the British Raj. So many films were being released during that time which portrayed the Britishers in good light and Indians as superstitious and backward. And a classic example of it is Gangadeen and The Drum. They both portrayed Indians in a very bad manner. And the film, like, generally is picked by critics to analyze how British Raj did propaganda during that time. And after that, films that were being made through indie directors, they showed progressive values of Indians. Like, for example, Raitu Bidda. It is a Telugu movie that got banned by the British Raj due to its take on the oppressive Jamindari system. And on similar line, my colleague Vatsala has also discussed the works of Kavi Pradeep and his writing for a propaganda song in the movie Kismat, which got banned by the Raj. Obviously, the song was like, it's voiced strong opinions in favor of Quit India movement. And Kavi Pradeep has also produced other songs like Chal Chal Re Naujawan, which create a wave of antagonistic feeling towards the British Raj. In light of this, she also discussed the formation of ITPA, which is the Indian People's Theatre Association. It got established in the year 1943, and it produced a movie called Dharti Ke Lal in the year 1946, which was a critique on the Bengal famine and the related millions of death of people of India. And through that movie, it showcased the directors. They were propagating the struggle of Bengalis during an extreme period, but they were also propagating a certain communist agenda that could be felt by the critics. Lastly, Vatsala's part focused on the new wave of cinema. Post-independence, the films were based on Nehruvian socialism. We all know that. Nehruvian socialism and the kind of work ethics that was being propagated by the ideal Nehruvian man. There's also a term associated with it in Soviet studies. It is called Stakhanovite. Yeah. So Stakhanovite is a term given to a Soviet man under the Stalin era who exceeded their established production and work quotas by massive margins. Like, generally, if you're working by 1, they will be working by factors of 10 and higher. So Nehru was demanding the Indians to work at extreme lengths to build a new India of his dreams. So movies like Do Bigha Zameen, Mother India, and Naya Daur are classic examples of this Nehruvian visionary montage. Then the paper turns its focus on contemporary times. It takes like in the European context, it takes the movie Flea. Flea is an animated movie. It talks about the concepts of human rights and migration in Europe. And Flea also challenges the portrayals of migrants that are being showcased in the European context, that these migrants are responsible for all the social issues in Europe, like the France attacks and certain other things. And it is very important to understand that these are like Flea is a very complex human story about a man who is like gay, and then he is being migrated to Europe from the Middle East. His journey, his human life, his like everything that he has experienced has been showed beautifully in the movie Flea, and is a perfect example of understanding dissent and even propaganda through the European eyes. And lastly, in the Indian contemporary times, films like the Kerala Story, the Kashmir Files, Uri, the Accidental Prime Minister has all been helpful in constructing the strong image of Naya Bharat, which is a concept actively promoted by Modi 2.0 cabinet. And these are works of propaganda, no doubt about it. And lastly, in conclusion, I'd like to say that the research paper has examined the dynamic relationship between world cinema and political propaganda. It showcased the multifaceted nature of cinema in shaping public discourses. Thank you so much. This was all about it.
Thank you, Anurag, for the wonderful paper. Now I would like to invite Ms. Anisha Dogra, Anjali Bose, and Abhigyan Mahanta. They are the students of MA Sociology second year from the Amity Institute of Social Sciences. They are going to present a paper on analyzing socio-cultural change of media in the contemporary society.
May I know how many more speakers?
This is the last presentation of this session, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. We are presenting on the paper titled as Media Metamorphosis, Analyzing Social Cultural Change of Media in the Contemporary Society. Good morning, everyone. I, Anisha Dogra, with my co-presenters Anjali Bose and Abhigyan Mahanta, will be presenting our research paper. So, metamorphosis is basically a biological term which means transformation in structure from one stage to the next in the life cycle of an organism. For example, how caterpillar transforms into butterfly. Similarly, media metamorphosis means how media systems and technologies evolve over time. So we try to analyze how social and cultural impacts of media in the contemporary society. Media from Gutenberg's printing press to today's digital age represents the evolving channels, be it print, broadcast, or digital, that not only spreads information but also shape and reflect the complex bond between culture and society, and explains how media, culture, and society are linked and exert influence on one another. So the theories that we've applied for research are: first, Katz and Lazarfeld's cultural effect theory, that says how media can change our beliefs and behaviors by showing us certain cultural messages, highlights how media influences our view of the world. And the second is the hegemonic model by Antonio Gramsci, that says how big, powerful groups use media to push their ideas and stay in control. It shows how media shapes what we think and our society's rules. So the objectives of our study are: first, to identify the socio-cultural impact of media on society; second, to analyze the implication of social media on identity and mental health; and third, impact of new media on society. For research methods, we use content analysis, which includes sample selection, data collection, coding and categorization, and analysis. Handing it over to Anjali.
Thank you very much, Anisha. So these are certain research questions. I don't know how much is it visible. Anyhow, so basically there are certain research questions that we had to go through before we were making this particular paper. And we found out that media is the new, you can say, the new idea or ideology. And I say this very confidently because all the people who are sitting in this room right now have a smartphone, are using internet, and are changing the world in one way or the other. Of course, there are a lot of negative effects to media. We do talk about that, but we cannot ignore the changes that media has brought into our lives. We all are busy with our lives, going through internet every day, sending WhatsApp messages, Facebook messages, Instagram messages. So we know how important these particular applications are in our life. So certain questions that we had to go through was how these new media platforms influence the pattern of social interaction and communication in the contemporary society. Basically, here it's a daily interaction that we have with. Right now, you guys are taking my video. That is also a social media interaction that we are doing, right? So that was the first question, that how new media is impacting that in our lives. Second is, how do new media platforms control the formation and dissemination of culture in the globalized world? So basically, even though our presentation is centralized towards India more, but we cannot ignore the globalization impact that we are having. We all can sit here and have a video chat with a friend who's sitting abroad. We were just having our online um, presentations. Somebody who was not here, somebody who was not from India. So that is how media has impacted. So this was another questions of how new media was helping us in the formation and dissemination of the cultural impact in the globalized world. Then we had, what role does new media play in shaping public opinion, attitudes, perceptions, and various social cultural issues? Now, when we were writing this part of our research paper, this was the most interesting part. And honestly, because we stand at a place where we are using the OTT platforms, movies, and social media platform, so the roles that they play in our lives is certainly different. We all think that we are in a real and a real life. We say that we are in a real life. So I think somewhere or the other, it shapes our opinions, our attitudes, and how we see each other. So I'll be explaining it in the next upcoming slides. The fourth question is, to what extent does the new media influence the construction and representation of gender, mentality, and other identity categories in contemporary society? One of our delegates who just mentioned in the previous slide was about Black Lives Matter. Even though it was not a part of the Indian media, we were still very much aware of how and what it was happening. Taking consideration of the Ukraine war, the Israel war, we are all aware of what is happening, right? So we were keen to find out that what were the deeper issues that we can look up to in terms of media. And then comes gender and mentality. Of course, we know about the LGBTQ community and how it is coming forward, and how we are being very, very interested in the new things that are coming up in our life, right? And all of this is possible through media. It's not coming through a written platform, it's all media, right? Then we have the last research question, which I found personally very important, is what ethical and moral considerations arise from the proliferation of new media and its influence on cultural values and norms. So even though we use media without any control or any barrier, I believe that there must be some ethical considerations before using media, right? So next, we have made this flow chart. I don't know how much is it visible, but I will just explain it to you. So basically, the first, the one that's on the top is media. Then we've divided that into micro and macro. So when we say micro, it is an individual perspective, and when we say macro, it is a broad perspective, mass perspective. So for micro perspective, we used Katz and Lazarfield's cultural effect theory, which basically says how media can change our own beliefs, and how it culturally affects us, how it changes our beliefs, how it changes how we act, our attitude, right? For macro, we use the hegemonic model, which is by Antonio Gramsci. Here we are saying how certain institutions or certain groups influence media to showcase what they believe, right? So I will just give one example of each. So for hegemonic model, if you see the English language criteria, right, we are all watching that in our OTT platforms or in our social media platforms, and we believe that it is the only language which is accepted, right? So we do not think of anything else. We have a mass acceptations that in English is the only language which can be used in terms of any communication, right? Then we have example for Carson Lazarfield, where it says that it changes our own behavior. So for this, while we were writing the paper, we mentioned about the Indian entertainment, which we also mentioned here. So how certain serials or certain channels tells us how a tells us how a Indian middle class family should be, and we try to imitate that in our homes, right? We try to be very, in other words, we say we are very happy, but then we need a little bit of spice. So that is how we go. We watch those things and we think that it should happen in our life as well. Then then we have mentioned it as socio-cultural because it has both sociological and cultural relevance in our life, right? Now we've further divided into cultural and social. For cultural, we have sexual commodification, exploitation. In this particularly, we divided into three parts. First was the young age, then we had adults, and then the general category that we put into. So for young, we can say the content, when young adults are exposed to pornography, I think that puts an impact on their mental health, and somewhere or the other it is a sexual commodification and an exploitation, right? And the second point, culturally, we put impact in Indian entertainment media, which speaks about different movies, such as Kabir Singh, which portrays the patriarchy in a different level, right? So these are the cultural impacts that we found through this paper. Then is the social impact. First is impact on sexuality and mental health. So all of us here are aware of Kylie Jenner and her entire Instagram, how she maintains herself. So that is, it brings a mental disturbance in our mind that we want to be her, and we start telling ourselves that that is the mark, right? So it does impact our sexuality and mental health. Then is psychological repercussions, definitely. Or social media consumes a lot of energy and power from our minds. And the last is influence in attitude and conflict. We learn from social media and we make it a part of our daily life and a habit. So with that, as a result, we have the socio-cultural changes that are observed. Handing it over to Abhigyan.
The limitations, the findings of our research are as such. New media acts as a dual-natured entity. On one side, it's a hub for expression, learning, and connection, and on the other, it can distort realities and self-value, affecting expectation. Now, for example, platforms like Instagram, we know that what we see there is not all the time it's true. For example, when we see a celebrity or an influencer post something in media, many people believe that that's the life they live every single day, but that is not exactly true, and we all know that. That gives us unrealistic expectations, which can in return distort self-value and lead to feelings of inadequacy. Second findings of our research was that the representation of intimacy in explicit content has deep implications on mental well-being, creating wrap views on sexuality, intimacy, and body perception. Third finding was, given the all-encompassing influence of new media, there is a need for a careful and balanced approach to media consumption, highlighted by awareness, education, and discerning interaction. The fourth findings of our research was creating a media environment rich with authenticity, variety, and accountability is essential, as it encourages overall wellness, real-world standards, and wholesome relationship. The fifth finding was a well-rounded approach involving protective strategies, parental guidance, ethnic content production, and support for mental health is vital to lessen the negative impacts of new media and to leverage its potential for positive change, learning, and interconnectedness. With the fifth finding, I would like to provide an example. Like, for example, in a family, sometimes the parents implement rules like during the dinner time, you cannot use your phones, or there's a limited screen time for a particular age group in a family, which actually is a very healthy habit that can lead to a much better growth of mental health during the age of media. Also, this includes like, for example, content creators can focus on making more inclusive and realistic content. Schools and communities can offer workshops on media literacy and importance of mental health. Also, in the beginning of our study, the questions that you have posed there, we can see that how media has both like the positive aspect and the negative aspect. And one common initiative we have seen that which is the most effective in handling the negative effects of media is digital detox initiatives. Like at the same time, we all maintain a healthy diet to have a better health. In the same time, with media, we have to have such kind of detox where it in return it will help us in our mental health and productivity. Now, at the end, I would like to conclude by saying that new media's evolution profoundly impacts society, shaping perception and cultural identities. While offering vast opportunities, it also presents challenges. Implementing evidence backed strategies like media literacy and diverse representation is essential to harness its positive potential and foster a balanced, informed society. Thank you.
All right. So thank you so much, Anjali, Anisha, and Abhigyan. Now I would like to hand over the session to the chair. Over to you, ma'am and sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. First, I would like to thank Professor Shruti and Professor Sheetal for inviting me to this beautiful conference, for chairing this session on media innovation and socio-cultural dissent. A wonderful topic that has been discussed by all the presenters from Anthony to Malaysia, Rupali, Harshit, Anisha, and Vatsala. They have spoken on various issues of media that reflects on on society and its people, from sexuality to how women are portrayed in media, and and also on how different social medias are used in conveying a message to the society. So first, I would like to congratulate all the presenters who have done an excellent presentation on this. And since we know that dissent especially symbolizes it's a movement away from imposed cultural identities, and brings to a new age of autonomy, choice, and reason within the culture. So, in the media innovations, the focus on social innovation is connected to recognizing how media changes are deeply connected to the changing social cultural practices and conceptions. When I say changing social and cultural practices, we've also seen how women have, how the presenters in this seminar have spoken on media metamorphosis, the celluloid part of media, and how it influences the people in both right and in both positive and negative manner. And how even in the cultural institutions we also see a change of the responsibilities, especially for the welfare of people, right? So we are seeing, especially in India, we have been seeing changes on the LGBT plus communities, where we have the social media has forced to bring in a law to see that they are accepted, and a law that is meant for it to see that they are on equal terms with the others, right? So otherwise, I think social media has also which is a very important topic, where from a 3-year-old to an 80-90-year-old, everybody uses mobile and they know what they are watching and what they are, how they are perceiving things on their screens. So social media has definitely spread awareness on such topics, like we see where it still needs to be talk on women representation in media, or how people from different communities. FGM is another topic today that we need to talk about and ensure that, especially in India, that we have a law to ban FGM in India. And it takes a lot of courage and effort from the media communities and the people to stand with the one who is to be a part of on the other side, to ensure that we need to bring a change and ensure that they are physically and mentally not tortured on something that is practiced through various through their cultures in their respective communities. And then again, on the other hand, we still see cases, especially when you watch your read newspapers on an everyday basis, how we speak, how it is, they talk about rapes of women, violence, abuse of women, which also gives us, when the other countries are reading news, we talk about how they come to an analysis and say that how India is not a safe place for women to live in the world, right? But of course, yes, we can't blame the media, because media is also a reflection again of what society is going through. But then media just plays a part of showing what is happening in the society. But more than that, I think that the people in their respective communities and cultures, wherever they are, also need to make a stringent effort to ensure that, irrespective of the caste, creed, and community, the people and is protected, and they talk about the welfare of the society at large. So by and large, this was a wonderful session with a host of topics involved to ensure that it was enlightened enough for the audience from across the globe who are listening here on this platform. And thanks again. This is somewhere I'm talking from Bangalore. You are in Delhi, and somebody also spoke from Italy, right? So thanks to the science and technology and how media now we are using it in sitting in our comfort zones, seeing each other. I can see Shruti and Sheetal smiling, and yeah. So this is a wonderful session. Thank you again for inviting me here. And should we take questions, or how is it? Or you would allow Deepak to speak and then take the questions?
Oh, we'll have Deepak sir's views now. Afterwards, we'll have the question answer round. Deepak sir, the session is over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Am I audible, please?
Yes, sir, you're very much audible.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, Thanks for giving me this opportunity to interact with this August gathering. And thank you, Professor Sudha, for very, cogently summing up the mood of the session. And the various topics which were picked up were very interesting. And I was looking at the overall papers which were presented in this particular session, though I missed out on, I think, one particular paper. But overall, the idea of media and relation of media with society, something which had been resonating in media studies way back in 1920s, 30s, when critical thinkers started talking about mass media and media culture. So till date, the ideas and the theoretical engagement with media, sorry, just a second. Till date, the idea of media, the way media impacts society, the way media affects society, and the way society in turn controls and regulates media. This debate has been ongoing for a long time. And then 1980s, when we have now new media coming up, but new media has not really displaced or totally replaced the previous form of media. So we have both forms of media continuously. We are engaging with both forms of media, and the basic questions continue to haunt us with regard to the impact these technologies, these communication, these mediated technologies have on our day-to-day personal relations, social relations, cultural life forms. But I think one of the things which came to me, which I find is very important as a sociologist to understand, is that many a times we are able to correlate some of the social phenomena with certain kind of things happening in media landscape. But then, when, like Durkheim says that we have to make a distinction between covariance and then understand whether this covariance is also related to some kind of correlation. And then further, before we go on to make a causality between two particular phenomena, we have to have sufficient evidence to say that this particular thing had an impact or effect on cultural practices, social. So whether media merely depicts what happens in society, or society is or media is actually generating and creating a new form of social interaction, new forms of new processes of cultural interactions. Now, having said this, because though some of the papers were very interesting, and I found it very important that, especially with reference to new media, the idea of propaganda, the idea of identity formation, these were addressed very ably by all the speakers. It was heartening to listen to students from MS, students from PhD, actually engaging with the theme of media in a very constructive manner, and also trying to bring in the theoretical frameworks to analyze these phenomena. But then, as a student of sociology, I think it's always important to look out for that causality to establish the final relation between a particular phenomena and a particular different phenomena, and linking it up theoretically. So definitely, how especially the one on propaganda was very interesting, because in Orwellian sense, the totalitarian regimes using media very effectively, and the media that we consume today is to an extent consuming us. So we have to be very critically engaged. We have to critically engage with our media related practices to understand that we are not merely consumed by media, but we are consuming media in a very active manner, and regain our agency, not to be merely shaped by media, but also to shape media as we would like it to be. I think it'll be interesting if we can have some questions, and without taking much time, I would like to hand it over to the chair, Professor Sudha, to kindly invite questions for this session.
Thank you, ma'am and sir. Can we have the questions, please? If anybody has any question. Yes.
Arisha, mic is the mic. You have a question? Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, I wanted to ask the people you presented on the media impacts in India. So I just wanted to ask that the rapid advancement, digital advancement in India, does it have a negative impact on children nowadays?
Thank you for your question. That means you were paying attention to our presentation. All right. So basically, like I mentioned while I was standing there as well. Okay. So, like I mentioned when I was standing there, that it does leave a lot of impact on young children. If you see the age group between 2 to 5, everybody must have anybody who has a toddler in their house between 2 to 5. Can I see you raising your hand? Yeah. So you must have heard of cocoa melon, right? So every toddler nowadays, they don't eat food, they will not listen to you, they will throw tantrums because they watch such series. So there was a research, especially on cocoa melon, of how rapidly changing the slides affects psychologically, especially to the toddlers, right? And that pushes them to become to throw more tantrums. So I think that social media does help. It has a positive impact, but it is, however, a challenging thing for toddlers, especially. Yes, we use media for our academic purpose, but at that age, I think connecting with environment, connecting with parents, connecting with friends face to face is more impactful than through media, because that is the age between 5 to 8 is the age where you socialize the most, and you take all the things from your family, friends and teachers. So I think that phase is impacting negatively, especially for children. Those children don't need it for their academic research. Let's all be honest about it, right? So I think yes, it does impact negatively. Thank you very much.
All right. Any other question?
First of all, thank you. It was a very good and brief presentation. And I wanted to ask something that our Prime Minister has introduced the Digital India, concept of Digital India. So do you think it would help in reducing poverty?
Thank you so much. That's a very important question. So, all right. So, Digital India is a very good initiative, and there is no doubt about it. Recently, during can I have silence? Okay. Recently, during G20, we saw different leaders coming from outside, and they were buying from local shops and vendors, and they were using UPI payments. Right. So that is something that we have to be proud about, and there is no doubt about that. But at the second, a coin has two faces, right? So this is one face of the coin. The second face of the coin is totally different. A person who does not have a job, a person who cannot afford a phone, not a smartphone, a person who does not have enough money to eat, who's in BPL, which is below poverty line, I don't think digitalizing India will help him in any matter, because somewhere or the other it is not helping him at all. So he's being more poor, right? So this particular scheme of Digitalize India, this particular plan is only for those who have a basic minimum, who have a smartphone, and who can know you can utilize that, right? If you don't have money to eat, I don't think nobody will have the money to not eat and buy a smartphone, right? So we have to pay attention on that. It does help them to become more poorer, so it does not help to reduce poverty. So thank you so much.
Any other question? Ma'am, sir, can we conclude with your kind permission?
Yes, you can. You may conclude.
Sir, you want to speak something? Yes, sir.
Ma'am,
Yes, sir. We, let me go up with it.
Yeah, I just wanted to suggest something that normally there is a tendency among students and many of us academicians to look at a particular phenomenon only in black and white, right? So the easiest way to look at technology is whether it has a positive impact or a negative impact. And also looking at technological determinism. I think the idea of technological determinism was well challenged by Raymond Williams in 1970s. And it was more or less settled as sociologists in general. We do talk about how social structures, social systems, cultural practices, how these kind of social phenomena are in turn shaping technological engagements and how they are shaping our technology related practices also. So I'm just trying to mention that rather than looking as technology always delivering what we intend to or what is expected of it, there are a lot of things, the way technology develops and gets shaped by the larger social, cultural, and historical factors, that also has to be highlighted a bit to understand that the technologies are on. So, for example, that it's not randomly that certain forms of technologies become widely used. It is not randomly that certain kind of technology gets used. The society chooses that certain kind of technologies will be propagated and they'll be made normal, and so there's a larger discourse of power that also determines the kind of technologies that will be used, the kind of technologies which will be made part of our day-to-day lives, which in turn are related to our which in turn determines our possibilities and opportunities, right? With this note, I just leave it to Professor Sudha to wind up the session, please. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, well said, Deepak. But ultimately, we need to talk about even the institutions that control and how it gets reflected or how it gets imbibed by these two on the people's mind. We ultimately need to talk about or see a change of responsibilities for ourselves and for the society, definitely for the welfare of people, right? So in saying that, I think social media should talk about spreading of awareness, spreading of or how it influences on a lot of topics on one particular subject, which would have a reflection on other cultures, and how even a known and an unknown cultures are learnt on medias in today's world, and how they also get connected to different culture across the world. And we need to talk about or I rather feel how social media has influenced a lot, and I feel it has managed to produce some positive, change in the, especially as I said, in the laws of our country, and has influenced the traditionalistic the people of India to become more tolerant in their perceptions of others. So there's a long way to go on how both of us use this technology and learn about taking care of each other. I think that conscious effort should be made from the people in the society, and that of course gets reflected on the media. Yeah, I think we can conclude now if Deepak is done.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Or if there are any questions, discussion if they need, we may conclude.
Thank you so much. I think we can conclude now. Thank you so much, Professor Sudha and Professor Deepak, for joining in for this session, for taking your time out and conducting this session. So thank you once again, and to all the presenters, thank you once again for participating. We can leave now for lunch, and the next session starts at 2 p.m. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Democracy, movements for social and economic justice, they advance for sustainable communities and societies, civil society, as well as formal international law dealing with crime against humanity and genocide. The thematic group on the human rights and global justice will explore a pluralist notion of conceptualization and operationalization of human rights and welfare. And the field of human rights is expansive, yet perhaps it's in infancy. Sociologists has already made significant contribution to the human rights field, but we can do much more, and people all over the world benefit from our research. The thematic group 3 on human rights and global justice will explore human rights, social justice in theoretical, empirical, and policies research, seeking to develop in the field and improve human welfare. So once again, I welcome you all in this technical session 8, which will be chaired by Professor Arvind Mahala and co-chaired by Dr. Namita Gupta. Namita Gupta is a faculty at the Punjab University, Chandigarh. She has authored many books, and she has published around more than 25 articles in both reputed national and the international journal. Then we have today's speaker, Dr. B.K. Nagla. Dr. B.K. Nagla is highly respected retired faculty. Residential diplomas. All right. Reside over. Okay. Then we'll be having a presidential remark delivered by Dr. B.K. Nagla. Dr. B.K. Nagla is a highly respected retired professor from MDU University in Rohtak. He has made significant contribution to the field of education throughout his career. He taught at Maharaja Sayaji Rao University, Baroda in Gujarat, Institute of Criminology and Forensic Science at New Delhi before joining Maharishi Dayanand University, Rohtak. Then we have Pooja Paswan, who is Assistant Professor at Jamia Millia Islamia. Dr. Pooja is an accomplished professor at the Jamia Millia Islamia, and she is also associated with Harvard University. She has completed her PhD from Jamia Millia Islamia, and she has published her paper both in national and the international journals. Then we have Professor and Dr. Bhoop Singh Gaur, who is a Vice President TG03, that is the thematic group 3, International Sociological Association, and Secretary RC21. Indian Sociological Society. Professor Bhoop Singh Gaur is a JNU alumni, HOD of Department of Sociology, DGC, Gurgaon, Haryana, former NWI SA President and the convener RC21. He has published 8 books, 2 in process, and a resource person in more than 180 national and international conferences. His area of research is political sociology, gender studies, sociology of law, Dalit, and the media study. Then we have Dr. Sheetal Sharma, who is a PI, Gene Monet Erasmus, and the ACE projects. Dr. Sheetal is a faculty at the Center of European Studies, JNU, and she has published around more than 100 articles and a dozen books. Then we have Professor Shruti Singh, who is a professor at the MIT University in Noida, and she is an author, consultant, and researcher. She received ICSSR Fellowship for PDF from JNU. She has more than 2 decades of research experience and authored several books. Then we have Dr. Binay Jyoti Das, who is a secretary/treasurer at TG03 International Sociological Association, and is an academic director IICS New Delhi and a budding sociologist. Then we have Dr. Priyanka from IP University. I welcome you all for this technical session 8. So we'll begin our technical session with our first speaker. Dr. Professor Udhav, who is directly connecting with us from Nepal. Dr. Udhav, you are welcome in this technical session 8. You can start.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are absolutely audible to us.
I was thinking to speak after 1 or 2 speakers start, but anyway, I think I'm only the one who joined virtually.
Professor Namita is also joined us virtually, sir.
Who? Oh,
Professor Namita Gupta.
okay. Thank you very much for having me in this very august gathering. Definitely, I feel happy to share my thoughts together with my seniors like Bob Singh and others. I don't know because I'm speaking from this virtual platform and might not be audible every time because of the net problem. Please bear this with us. How many minutes I have?
You have 7 minutes to complete, sir.
Oh, then that is very easy, I guess. And being first speaker also helps a lot to speak whatever I feel like. Otherwise, others might already speak on the theme I was supposed to speak. Definitely, this is a thematic session, and that very session is titled with very many subtitles: social and political institutions, human rights, global justice, and definitely perspective from South Asia and also Europe. This is very broad topic you have given, and in 7-10 minutes time, what I could outline could be, for example, you see, we are in a very complex, you could say very difficult time. I rather use complex because every time seems to be difficult for those who has to go through this very time. And why it is complex could be, for example, due to a couple of new social and political institutions coming out. In fact, am I audible?
Yes, yes. Yes, sir. You are absolutely audible to us.
Yeah. For example, this is a complex situation, not only for human rights and global justice, but also for social and political institutions thing, I guess. Because earlier, for example, human rights could be kind of local phenomenon and then national phenomenon, but now due to this huge number of mobility and a huge number of restrictions imposed by the nation states regarding this mobility, there are many international issues also as far as human rights is concerned. So, for example, and then we come to the global justice, and we might relate it to kind of concept of the globalization. In fact, on the one hand, we say that this is a global village due to social media and other institutions. Yes, definitely. I, being in Nepal, could talk to seminar elsewhere organized, for example, as today. I can share my views, and everyone from globe at a time could see this phenomenon, whatever is happening. In a way, this is called globalization for many. But as far as this movement is concerned, not only movement of human being but also movement of goods and services, it is having lot many limitations for this global south, including Nepal, India, etc. And that might be kind of privilege for very many Western countries, including Europe. So your title, where we try to cover India and Europe, might be very difficult to deal at a go because Europe, saying, I guess, global north, is having its own perspective and it's having own beauty and strength as far as globalization is concerned. Many of the European countries might be having privilege in the name of globalization, and that is how their population might be generally enjoying kind of justice along with this very term globalization. But whereas in countries like Nepal and India, we are facing similar problem. Even if we try to send our goods to so-called developed world, even if we try to at least visit what is there in the global north, just to explore and come back, these countries pose lot many constraints, lot many limitations to good service and people's mobility. While we talk about even if we talk about globalization, so how to deal with this is very strange phenomenon today. On the one hand, we all suffer from global events. For example, the world has suffered due to Ukraine-Russia war. The world has additional this event to suffer. For example, this Israel-Palestine war just started. For example, today we are having this more mourning day because 10 Nepalese who were there just for a couple of weeks to learn something in Israel were killed by the attack in Israel. So that is how, on the one hand, we are suffering a lot from this in the name of global justice, globalization. But on the other, again, as far as mobility and this mobility of goods and services is concerned, we are again suffering. So this dilemma, this confusion, this dichotomy is always there for countries like us. So on the one hand, we say that this is 21st century. We have better social and political institutions. We have to ensure better human rights because there is a United Nations. There are other monitoring agencies to follow. But on the other, even those organizations, even for example UN and other this monitoring organizations, are helpless to ensure kind of rights or kind of global justice people are seeking for being in global south. So how to deal with? So I guess this kind of seminar might help us to understand it in a better manner. And definitely India is huge. India itself is now being divided into India versus Bharat, and within this very division, India versus Bharat, meaning rural India versus urban India, there are a lot many issues like human rights and other justice related issues. So yes, globally, whatever we see is limitation that is sometimes applicable to local context as well. So we'll have to look at in a comprehensive manner as far as these kind of titles are concerned, and definitely, as mentioned earlier, this we are in a very complex situation due to social. In fact, we try to even redefine whether the media is real social or the way it is being used only for the propaganda, only for the negativism, whether they are anti-social, in fact, whether social or anti-social. This very issue also has to be debated, and along with this, this propagandist way of using social media might be there are a lot many problems. There are a lot many other issues to be dealt together by social scientists like us while we talk about this human rights and global justice, I guess. So there it seems to be it seems there are a lot many speakers. I could see at least 7 in the dais, and I could see if everyone is given 10 minutes, then this session will go more than half hour, more than 1 hour, and might be this audience lose their attention. So I guess being first speaker, I try to lay down sort of conceptual and a bit this global and local perspective on this very title. And I'll be happy to have your comments at the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable comments on this topic. Thank you so much where you connected the dots, where you have defined the contextual meaning of socio-political dynamic which is happening at the global level. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Then in this series, we have next speaker, Professor Samita. Sorry for that. Professor Namita Gupta, who is the president, TG03, Human Rights and Global Justice, International Sociological Association. The stage is yours, ma'am.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I think I'm audible now.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So this is a very relevant topic on which we are talking about today, that is human rights in 21st century, a socio-political analysis. When we talk about human rights, it's a very complex and a very dynamic concept. And when we are talking about human rights in 21st century, lots of things are similar what we were facing earlier. For example, we were talking about women rights earlier also, and now also we are still stuck up on certain rights where we were talking about rights of the marginalized, and we are still focusing on those. For example, women rights, rights of the children, disabled, rights of the people with who are disabled, and then however, if you'll see, there are certain changes also within the ambit also. For example, if we talk about women's right, few years back there used to be many conferences on women empowerment. I think more than 20 I have attended. So everywhere we were talking about women empowerment, but gradually we shifted the terminology, and now we talk about women-led growth. So even if we are talking about the rights of the same group, the perspective have changed. The way we look at how their rights have to be ensured, that has changed in majorly in last 20-30 years. Similarly, there are new issues. For example, we talk about sexual harassment at workplace more in last 10-15 years than we were doing it before. There are more women on the dais than men, and I'm very happy about that. So similarly, when we were talking about disability rights, we started with the terms like handicap, and gradually we started using the term disability, and now we are using different terminologies. We are using the term differently abled people, persons with disability, children with special needs. And this is not only related to terminology. When we change the terminology, when we use the term like women's agency, it is not only the concept, it shifts the very focus of how we were planning to achieve that particular goal, or we were trying to target that particular so-called minority or marginalized group. For example, when we were talking about women's empowerment, we were somewhere forcing it that it is from somewhere else it will come. But gradually we realized that it is women's agency which play a very important role. So the empowerment already lies within the women, and we just have to give her that liberty. So we have become conscious about the terms, which is a very positive step. Similarly, there are many new human rights concerns which have emerged in last few decades. For example, we were never talking about right to privacy so much as we are doing in last 10-15 years. I think major debate in our classrooms these days goes about how our data on the websites or our social media needs to be, how we can erase them, how we can right to be forgotten. So we have, in the same rights, we have moved to a new generation of rights within the right to privacy. Similarly, when we talk about rights of the transgenders, in Punjab University, we almost every year we have 1 or 2 transgender students in my department. I am from Center for Human Rights and Duties. And I see that change when 7 years back there was a student transgender. There were very simple issues which they were finding difficult. They were talking about toilets, or they were talking about simple terms. This year, students ask for hostels. They ask for equality. So the shift is drastic. when we are talking about these shifts, the major challenge here lies in that the way the whole context of human rights is changing in last few decades. Our legal system or our administrative system is not so well equipped, or we can say empowered, to deal with these changing terminologies and these changing challenges of human rights. For example, we may talk about disability rights. We always used to have a charity model, but now they talk about, we always stress upon their equal rights. So focus was on accessibility, but infrastructural accessibility, gradually we realized it is not only creating ramps. We surveyed more than 200 schools in Punjab, and we realized even the principals and colleges school teachers, when you talk about infrastructural accessibility, they say it is just ramp. Creating the ramp will make the school accessible. So I think the most important thing is that how we have to break those barriers where that human rights for all can be ensured. And these kind of conferences, I'll really applaud the organizers of this conference, that it is a very relevant theme when we are talking about human rights and global justice. We are not focusing only on Indian context, because nowadays we can't restrict the understanding of rights to a particular country, though we need specific studies, but there are global implications. So these conferences are a step ahead, but I think there is another thing which is somewhere lacking in social sciences, is that gradually, as a social scientist, we have lost contact with the field or the ground realities. So I think it is very important that as this conference I was going through the resource persons, I could realize that people are from different disciplines. So it is very important that people from different disciplines come together, sit together, and try to find out the solutions. We all know the challenges, we all know the problems, which at the global level, human rights issues which we are going through. But these conferences provide a right platform where we can sit together and discuss. And it is very important that though we discuss it in the conferences, and we are doing it for last many years, that we should now start moving to the field, so that we stay closer to ground realities. When our students, whatever we teach in the classrooms, when they go to field, they say that the reality is totally different. So there should be some mechanism where, I think in conferences we have to develop a mechanism where for 1 or 2 days we can deliberate theoretically, and then maybe on day 3 we can go to the field and check that whatever we are talking about, whether it is making sense at the ground level or not. So I again congratulate the organizers for organizing this conference, and I know it is very difficult to having a conference in both online and offline mode. Lots of technical modalities have to be worked out, and I really appreciate for that. And I would love to hear the deliberations and take part in if there are any questions in the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your word of appreciation. You have lucidly pondered upon changing dynamics of gender issue and the women's rights, with a special focus on the human rights and the disability rights. Thank you so much, ma'am, thank you so much for your time, ma'am. Then in this series, we have next speaker, Dr. Sheetal. Dr. Sheetal is a PI with the Jean Monnet Erasmus and the ACE project, and she is currently a faculty with JNU. Dr. Sheetal, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are discussing social political institutions, transformation and experiences from India and Europe. I'll bring you a European story about human rights and justice, global justice. Now, these are twin concepts, rights and justice. Because if in case you feel that there is some injustice meted out to you in a scenario, then only you talk of your rights, or you invoke your rights in order to get justice. It's a vicious circle, one feeds into another. And these two issues are very important because of the fact that progressively, as societies are, with every passing day becoming increasingly culturally diverse, I would say not just economically diverse or politically diverse or having different regional connotations to their life and living. As societies are becoming progressively diverse, these issues of justice and injustice would invariably crop up, because I feel relatively deprived as compared to the people on the other side. Now, I hope some of you attended our yesterday's lectures, and I'm building upon that only. And one thing that I bring out from Europe is that whenever we look at Europe, one picture comes to our mind, that load full of migrants are being trafficked to the main island, continental Europe. And beach mein you hear about stories that how people are trafficked, and how sometimes the boat capsize and large number of people die. Now let me give you some statistics. From 2014 to 2018, at the peak of Syrian crisis, there were almost 10 deaths every day on an average, which happened in the Mediterranean region. And you know how this trafficking happens? This trafficking happens in the war-torn area, conflict areas, where the traffickers, they strike a deal. Deal कैसे होती है कि every individual who would be transported there, they strike a price between 10,000 to 12,000 euros. 10 से 12,000 euro का आपको डील करना पड़ेगा in order to get trafficked. Now suppose you are a family of 5 people. आपको उसने थोड़ा डिस्काउंट भी दे दिया, 50,000 euros in order to get traffic to continental Europe, where you think that you are going to have a good life. ठीक है? Because you are in a war-torn country where there is a fear of prosecution at every point of time. Now, when traffickers do this, there are modus operandi, and some boats which are the steel and wooden boats, they sail through, but sometimes the rubber dinghy boats, they capsize because of overloading of these people or the ठूस के भरने का. The second mode is the road transport. And there was a movie also made on this. I haven't watched it, but I could relate to that movie, because there are vegetable trucks in which they hide people among the corn. Bhutta होता है ना, भुट्टा, वो उसको सैक में भर दो, बोरे में भुट्टे को भर दो, तो you have spaces to breathe. So you are hidden in those corn sacks, and suddenly somewhere the police packet will stop you, and they will put piers in it. भाले मार मार के देखेंगे, and if you get hit by it, obviously they'll come to know that somebody is hiding. There's sub-zero temperatures. Okay, all right. The third mode is that you have a transit route. यहाँ से फ्रेंच रियूनियन आइलैंड चले जाओ, रियूनियन आइलैंड से आप वहां चले जाओ फ्रांस में. So this is something which is more challenging, थोड़ा legal है, more challenging as compared to the other two routes I've told you. Now you may think why people are putting their life, spending so much of money in order to get a better life in Europe. Is European life all as such better as compared to their back home tragedies and traumas? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. And I'll give you perspective from both the sides, the European side also and the other side also. Now, over a period of time, the number of people, those who are coming to Europe, the population of migration is expanding. Their natural birth rate is less than the migration rate. No, the net incomers are more than that. So what has happened? Consequently, I'm cutting, sir, Nagla sir, I'm cutting many things short in order to compress large amount of things. So there is a rise of Islamophobia, because people from the Mediterranean region, North Wana region, West Africa and North Africa and Western Asia, they are basically from a particular community, and there is a fear of Islam, which is called as Islamophobia. Now, is it real? You say that people are coming to my society, they are going to contaminate my culture, they are going to destroy my culture. At the same time, the incomers also feel that my culture is also eroding, so there is a clash between the two. Now, how do we look at this clash? The clash is that there are 3 types of policies of integration of these people, acceptance of these people. The first one is the policy of assimilation. You come here and become like us. Say, for example, in France, everybody has to follow the French way of life. No French ways, values, everything. So you come here and become like us, forget what you are. The second policy is policy of integration, where you come here and remain like yourself, which is the policy of integration, almost equivalent to melting pot and salad bowl philosophies of American origin. But that leads to a kind of separation. In the name of multiculturalism, it leaves people into different compartments, so there is no mixing. The third is the policy of enclavement. You come here and remain distant to us. And this is leading to ghettoization. And ghettoization, as soon as it happens, it becomes a breeding ground for radical ideas to crop up. So, how do you overcome all these problems? One problem from the migrant perspective, from the native perspective, I tell you, so there is a village in Germany. Narendra sir, there is a village in Germany. A professor had come to JNU. He said that the native village had a population of 400 Germans. Okay? During the peak of crisis, when Germany said that we are going to take 1 million migrants, they said, okay, welcome, open your arms and doors for the migrants to come. And the authorities gave them 300 people to settle in that village. All right, 300 logon ko unhone, they adjusted them in church, abandoned buildings and all that. After 6 months, there was a survey in order to check that inki policies of integration, is everything going on properly, sab ठीक ठाक चल रहा है ना. So when they went, they said, oh, wonderful, your report card is very good. You have adjusted all these guys very wonderfully, integrated them. आपको 300 और दे देते हैं. अब क्या? The 400 natives now will be facing 600 the others. They said, no, you are not good enough in order to become bad enough later on. So tomorrow they will claim that this is my place. So how do you balance all these things? The rights and justice is a very thin line. It's like walking on a tightrope. When do you fall on what side is very difficult. What is required then? What is required? How do you relate? There are two groups that invariably gets formed when you talk about justice, injustice, equality, inequality, marginalization, discrimination, whatever name you may call it. The relationship between these two groups is in-group and out-group. There are 5 ways in which in-group and out-group relate to one another. Number 1. The out-group is seen as an anomaly and they must be eliminated at any cost. Genocide, Holocaust, what happened in Israel is something which is seen as the outgroup is anomaly, kill them. The second way is that outgroup is different from you. We are not going to kill you because we can also get killed, but there will be no contact between you and me, absolute separation. The third way in which in-group and out-group deal with each other is hierarchy or ranking, that we are superior to you and this is cause of most of the conflict world over. The fourth way is that the out-group is seen as a potential group of converts. So all your missions, proselytizing, ghar wapsi, conversion, all these issues are seen in terms of inviting, attracting the out-group in order to come into your fold. And the fifth one is a very ideal type that all of us live in a fraternity, bhaichara prevails and all of us are bhai and ban and there is no anomaly, there is no conflict, no ranking, no inequality. So it is up to us to decide about that in order to deliver justice, do away with discrimination and marginalization. How do we cater to all these 5 models of in-group and out-group integration? So ultimately, when you as an out-group and me as an in-group, when 2 of us interact, how do we interact? Either actively or proactively or reactively. Okay? And there is a sense of accommodation or there is civic distance. I just smile at you in the lift, do nothing when you fall down. All right? And then there are ways in which the civic engagement has to come. But all these models, as sociologists, we talk about them. These are the templates in which we can tick, okay, India is this, Europe is this, Afghanistan is this. But the ultimate responsibility is a philosophical responsibility of the human societies now, that as we are transforming, the cultural diversity is going to increase, ever increase in a different fashion. Who is a victim now can become a perpetrator later, or who is a perpetrator now can become victim at one point of time. So a sense of civic maturity is desirable. Tolerance, the concept which came from the womb of enlightenment, is not an appropriate word. Because if I tell you that, Bhoop, I tolerate you, you are my roommate, Bhoop will certainly not like this because tolerance is a different word which may have a negative connotation. So rather, I would suggest that this tolerance has to be replaced by civic patience, civility, which is more a demand or more a need, I would say, of the present times in order to do justice to the concepts of global justice and human rights. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for covering this very complex issue. Thank you so much for covering the basic between the rights and the justice and the issues of migration with a special reference to human trafficking. You have also covered the various process of in-group and the out-group integration through melting pot and the salad bowl theory. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your thought-provoking lecture. In the next series, in this series, we have next speaker, Dr. Bhoop Singh Gaur. In this series, we have next speaker, Dr. Bhoop Singh Gaur, who is a Vice President, TG03 International Sociological Association and Secretary, RC21 Indian Sociological Society. Please.
Thank you. Respected chairperson for this session and my mentor, Professor B.K. Nagla, and my batchmate, Professor Narendra, and Arvind Mehla is there, and Parakul is also there from Nepal, and Sheetal, Dr. Sheetal is there, Dr. Binoy Jyoti is there, Shruti is there. All are my JNU friends, juniors, and seniors. See, and this is very relevant topic. How you see human right in the 21st century. But just they started that from women empowerment to women-led empowerment. But my take is that whether women as a human being still has been considered by all society equal to men. In this regard, I thought to have a my views are, me and a few others are doing research कर रहे हैं, that is of the socio-cultural expectation of pregnancy and discrimination in care. So what kind of expectation is there during pregnancy and do the care, right to have care before or after? So that is the basic key. Everybody in society know very well that men and women are integral and complementary to each other. If they want to make the family, they want to make progress in the society, as a society, and later on world level society, they both are complementary to each other. Both have them to equally play. So why right to have motherhood is still not considered as a right? Why she doesn't have right to have reproductive choices when she wants to have motherhood? And why she is sacrificing her career for sake of motherhood? Till now, see, in that case, women are just forced to have one due to socio-cultural factor. If women is not able to bear son, you know what kind of human right violations she suffer in all aspect, whether in within family, outside family, on job sector, peer group, everywhere. One, even she got pregnant and she, you can see, got the motherhood, but she is having daughters. Another kind of stigma is there. Till now, if anyone pregnancy is going on and you go their home and just take away baby girls, whether poster or teddy bear, you see the reaction, what kind of reaction you will get there. And assumption, you saw, if you talk at that time, what kind of assumption their peer group made, what you are going to have. Nobody will talk about the safe pregnancy, safe delivery, but they will talk about you are going to have son. Son-centering socio-cultural construction is there. And even after you see the care during pregnancy, you will taken as utmost care. But anyhow, they want to know what is you can sex determination test they will want to do, and they come to know that it is female, what kind of status she will get or care afterwards she will get. You know, this area, North India, Haryana, Punjab, Chandigarh, is known as a Kudi Maru state. So-called civilized society, we, how many? I think in last 2 decades we have killed more than 2 crore daughters. That's why we call it D Maru state, daughter elimination states. We call it civilized. So that is the utmost right to have a safe pregnancy or safe delivery. And after that, if you go, daughter is there, then what kind of treatment you will find in society? That is questionable. That we have to think. And discrimination in care you will find throughout the life. Nowadays we can find little bit change is there. But you see the old social values, cultural values, norms, regulation will be bounded on girl only. How you can think that? And you know, during this my study, me and my daughter and other students, see, they just we want to know the reaction. She's doctor, and so when she was having this maternity duty, gynae duty, so I asked them what is the reaction of parents when you say whether it is a child, whether it is a son or daughter, what is the reaction? Just so in April, this April, out of 40, you can say 40 pregnancies, deliveries. So among the who were having daughters, ladki paida ho gayi. And in 2 cases, one of mother-in-law slapped a lady when she come to know she is on bed. Slapped a lady. You have given the birth to a female child. And in one case, they, you can say, they called husband, another relative, that she needs blood, so arrange the blood. Until 2.5 hours, no phone calling back, and they have to arrange their own self. After knowing that new baby is girl. So what kind of right we are talking, just you are not over. So these are few cases. Our study is still going on because I want to do more than 500 such cases and observation. What kind of observation or statement made by parents at that? Only 2 out of 40. Only 2 were distributed the sweets after knowing that this is first child or girl child. So I am advocating that first, when you are talking about motherhood, so we have to think ourselves that without mother, we have not been there. She is birth giver. So due to her, we are here. And right to care during pregnancy or after pregnancy, and right to choose reproductive, or you can say when she is want to have pregnancy, that must be recognized we must talk about the third gender right, but lesser we talk about these kind of right. So in 21st century, we have to think about from women empowerment, women-led development to, in real sense, women should be considered as a integral part of human society, equal partner in all aspects, not tidbits. Then we can call ourselves as a civilized, global, so-called civilized global citizen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Bhup Singh Gaur, for sharing your thoughts. There you covered the gender dynamics of pregnancy and motherhood from socio-cultural point of view. In this series, we have next speaker, Dr. Priyanka from IP University.
Good afternoon, esteemed dignitaries, Professor Udham sir, Professor Namita ma'am, Professor B.K. Nangla sir, Professor Bhoop sir, Dr. Sheetal Sharma ma'am, Professor Shruti Singh, and Dr. Binoy Jyoti Das ma'am. So it's an honor for me to stand before you and address this important issue of human rights in 21st century, a socio-political analysis, where I'll be presenting the media perspective on this. In the digitalized society and globalization, it is very imperative to reflect upon the state of human rights. Human rights stand at a bedrock of inclusive society. Many societies work on the motto of do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which means that respect each other and treat with dignity. We have these mentions in many of the ancient texts like Vedas, Bible, Quran, and many societies work on this. The Universal Declaration of Rights, Human Rights, which was laid say about 7 decades ago, it's been a guiding light for us for fostering global commitment to justice and fairness. To highlight upon the socio-political analysis, issues like rising populism, intolerance, gender inequality, women facing barriers to empowerment, marginalization, and also minorities on the basis of ethnic or religious backgrounds are very important to be highlighted. Nelson Mandela said, I quote, "To deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity." I unquote. When we talk about media and human rights, the equation between them are symbiotic. The freedom of press follows from the right of freedom of speech and expression derived from the Article 19, Clause 1. The responsibility of media is to ensure society and which enjoys equal human right. When I reflect upon the history of media, the first newspaper which came in 1780, the Bengal Gazette by Hickey, that was also a part that he also challenged the gross human rights violation by the East India Company. And many social reformers who came in like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Dayanand Saraswati, they all used media as a medium to create awareness in the field of human rights, including equal rights to women. So mass media has always been instrumental in bringing about the issues of disabled, transgenders, refugees, and fighting for the social evils like child marriage, child labor, female infanticides, human scavenging, and also found prominence in mass media, creating public opinion as instrument of social change. In the 20th century, the Gandhian and the post-independence era, the media saw a meteoric rise in print media, where there was mushrooming of language newspapers and small businesses. They all came up with the reporting of refugee conflicts, plight of farmers on loss of their land, and covering suffering and agony of the affected. Media has been instrumental for creating social upliftment of women, like the campaign like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, emphasizing on the importance of girl child education. So mass media is the eyes and ears of any democratic society and safeguards the public interest by raising voice of the voiceless. And it is also the fourth pillar of the democracy. The famous quote from a Hollywood movie, Spider-Man, which says that with the great power comes the great responsibility. And the media also shares responsibility. In Article 19, subclause 2, we have the reasonable restrictions on media. The Society of Professional Writers have 4 standards which says to look for truth, minimize hurt, act autonomously, and be responsible and straightforward. These standards are based on the society's conviction. The public illumination is the trailblazer of equity and establishment of democracy. Numerous news organizations have different morals and standards, but the basic tenets of media remains the same, like not to be a mouthpiece in the vested interest and create a congenial environment for the communal atmosphere, for the atmosphere reporting the communal issues. And when we talk about the digital media, the ubiquity of social media platforms, they have transformed the media landscape. The social media are the catalyst for the social movements. And if we talk about the social media, okay. So Arab Springs, Black Lives Matters, they all created a social uproar. And in the modern media, the media has brought forefront of the human rights. So I say that media has always been instrumental in promoting the human rights, and also in the 21st century. So the technology, globalization, and the protection of human rights are hand in glove. And so to conclude, I conclude with a quote by Martin Luther King that it's the duty of every citizen to protect the right of others. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Priyanka, for covering the media perspective of human rights with a brief history of media as a medium of human rights. In the next series, we have Professor B.K. Nagla, who is a retired professor from MDU. Professor B.K. Okay, sorry. So in the next series, we have Professor Binoy Jyoti Das, who is a secretary, ISA, Indian Sociological Association, International Sociological Association.
Thank you, guys, for giving me this opportunity. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, my esteemed dignitaries on the dais, Professor Nagla sir, Professor Sheetal, Professor Narendra sir, Professor Gaur sir, Dr. Priyanka Sachdeva, Professor Namita online, Professor Uddhav, and the dear research scholars and budding scholars. I'm extremely fortunate to get an opportunity to share my observation on human rights in this session, which is titled Human Rights in 21st Century and Socio-Political Analysis. My previous speakers who have already highlighted the issues which are pertaining to India, and not only India, from in the Europe also, highlighted by Professor Sheetal, ma'am, who talks about the complexities of rights and justice, which is the thin line. It is the really mind-boggling task for the civil society to have choose between what is sustainable, because any the option we choose, it would the kind of repercussions or future effects, we are not sure, because it is human nature and most complex science, because there is nothing absolute laws on where it would be easy to take your options. And since I'm coming from Northeast India, I would like to bring about the status of human rights in northeastern portion of India, where where recently we all know about the complex case of Manipur since a month of May, and we are in October. Every day we get to know that the killings of uh, innocent people, there's a kind of anarchy, there is a kind of no government situation in Northeast India. Nearly more than, I think, 50,000 people, they're forced to flee from their place, and they are sheltering in refugee center, which are again the place where they are not entitled to basic necessities. And the trauma, that is another thing, another level. And the people, the three communities, and they are trustee of blood from to of each others. And there is government which is showing at most negligent, or not what say, there is no government, that's people says. And there are we cannot blame this any of the community, because there is they have their own perspectives, like Métis. I assume that people are aware of Manipur problems here, so I would not go much there. But thing is that basic, they don't have a basic, you know, facility in the refugee camps, and they in a country when we are organizing G20 summits, and here same citizens are fighting for basic human rights, and they are not getting attention from the center, from our central government, or we are almost, how can we claim that we are becoming superpower, or when we are not able to protect the citizen of the same country. And there is media everywhere that we have a picture of a great things, but I think Northeast is not getting the any uh, place there. I think it's a forgotten case from the media. My previous speaker who talked about the instrumentality of media. So what media is doing? So when we when Manipur, like in Northeast India, I'm not going back what is there, but it's the when we are so much capable of making India plans, we are showing great showcase, and we have knowledge system. We talk about tolerance. We talk about secularism, everything. But then why we are not able to provide a solution, bring out? Yeah. So here, there is many cases. I would not go much, but still, this APSA. Armed Force Special Protections Act, which is still prevailing in northeastern part, and which gives enormous powers to violate human rights, and it's violating. It's creating a nexus of corruption. and it's giving many cases. It's in ground report says a very mostly this act has violated human rights. Okay, thank you for listening to me. I'm just I hope I could do something. Thank you, sir. Please, like.
Thank you, Dr. Vinay Jyoti Das, for delivering your thought-provoking lecture, thought-provoking thoughts on the status of human rights with special reference to Northeast state of India. In this series, we have next speaker, Dr. Arvind Mahala. Sorry, Arvind Kumar.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're absolutely audible to us.
अस्सीय आयोजन में इसमें उपस्थित सभी सोर्स पर्सन को नमस्कार। अभी जो बातचीत चल रही थी, विषय अभी आए सोशल पॉलिटिकल इंस्टीट्यूशंस के बारे में, ह्यूमन राइट्स के बारे में और ग्लोबल जस्टिस के बारे में। समय में ये जितने भी कंसेप्ट्स हैं जिनके बारे में हम बातचीत करते हैं, इन पर संपूर्ण विश्व में हम लोग नहीं बोलेंगे बात। अब तो हम ये कह सकते हैं कि ह्यूमन राइट्स की जो बात है वो ह्यूमन राइट्स की बात और एम्पावरमेंट की बात है, वो पूरी होती हुई दिखाई देती है। लेकिन जहां जितने भी इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, वो चाहे पॉलिटिकल इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, चाहे वो सोशल इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, या मेन विमेन के एम्पावरमेंट को लेकर काम करने वाले जितने भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं वो हैं, उनके संदर्भ में उनकी मोटो हैं, उनकी जो वर्किंग स्टाइल है, उनके गोल्स हैं, या उनकी जर्नी के संदर्भ में हम देखते हैं उनके अचीवमेंट्स हैं, उन पर लोगों की अलग अलग तरह की राय देखने को मिलती है। और वो राय एक तरह का अलग तरह का विमर्श समाज में उत्पन्न कर रही है, वो चाहे इंडिया हो या हम कहें एशियन सब कॉन्टिनेंट हो या यूरोप। कमोबेश स्थितियां सभी जगह एक सी ही दिखाई दे रही है। ह्यूमन राइट्स की बात करें, ग्लोबल जस्टिस की बात करें, तो हमें एक इंस्टीट्यूशन देखने को मिलता है, यूनाइटेड नेशंस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन। और उसकी भूमिका की हम बात करें तो इस समय जो ग्लोबल पीस को लेकर चिंताएं हो रही है, उन चिंताओं के संदर्भ में हमें रूस यूक्रेन और वर्तमान में एक जो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट चल रहा है, इजराइल, लेबनान, फिलिस्तीन, ईरान और उसके जो आसपास काम करने वाले कुछ संगठन हैं, कुछ देश हैं, या हम कहें एक पूरा विश्व हमको तीन ध्रुवों में पोलराइज्ड होता दिखाई दे रहा है, तीन पक्षों में, जिसमें एक तरफ इस्लामिक वर्ल्ड में कुछ लोग हैं जो हमास को, हिजबुल्लाह को समर्थन कर रहे हैं, फिलिस्तीन को समर्थन कर रहे हैं। दूसरी तरफ इजराइल के पक्ष में कुछ लोग जाते दिखाई दे रहे हैं। तीसरी तरफ ऐसे लोग हैं जो इस यात्रा को, इस संघर्ष को देख रहे हैं। ऐसी स्थितियों में जितने भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ग्लोबल जस्टिस को, पीस को, ह्यूमन राइट्स को लेके काम कर रहे हैं, उनकी भूमिका वर्तमान स्थितियों में ऐसा लग रहा है कि कहीं कुछ संदिग्ध है। एक स्पष्ट जो वर्किंग उनकी होनी चाहिए, जो उनकी मेथोडोलॉजी होनी चाहिए काम करने की, वो दिखाई नहीं दे रही। हम भारत के संदर्भ में बात करें तो लंबे समय तक हमने फिलिस्तीन का समर्थन किया। वर्तमान में हमारा नेतृत्व ये कह रहा है कि इन स्थितियों में हम इजराइल के साथ, दोनों तरफ के संघर्ष में।
डॉक्टर अरविंद सर, आपसे रिक्वेस्ट है, प्लीज बाइंड अप थोड़ा जल्दी कीजिएगा आप।
ठीक सर, ठीक सर। दोनों तरफ के संघर्ष में जो नुकसान हो रहा है वो ह्यूमैनिटी का हो रहा है। महिलाएं और बच्चे सबसे ज्यादा पीड़ित दिखाई दे रहे हैं। ऐसी स्थिति में यूएनओ की दूसरे जितने ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं, ह्यूमन राइट्स के जो क्षेत्र में काम करने वाले ऑर्गेनाइजेशन हैं, उनका कोई ढुलमुल रवैया दिखाई दे रहा है। तो ऐसी स्थितियों में अगर हम ये देखें तो 3-4 बिंदुओं पर हमें बात करनी चाहिए। एक तो सिक्योरिटी की बात की जाए, सिक्योरिटी में उसका एक लार्जर पर्सपेक्टिव देखा जाए या फिर इंडिविजुअल सिक्योरिटी की बात की जाए। इंडिविजुअल सिक्योरिटी में किसी भी तरह का कोई भी व्यक्ति हो, किसी भी विचारधारा को फॉलो करने वाला हो, उसको अपने जीवन जीने का अधिकार है, तो उसकी लाइफ की सिक्योरिटी कैसे होगी। और लार्जर पर्सपेक्टिव में देखा जाए तो बहुत सारे ऐसे ग्रुप्स हैं जिनसे बड़े बड़े इंस्टीट्यूशंस को थ्रेट मिल रही है, तो वो इंस्टीट्यूशंस अपने को बचाने के लिए अगर उन पर कोई कार्रवाई करते हैं तो इनको किस संदर्भ में देखा जाए। एक तो बड़ा इश्यू ये है सिक्योरिटी के लेके हम किस तरह का विमर्श और धारणा स्थापित करें। दूसरा हम ये बात करें कि अभी हम बात कर रहे हैं एम्पावरमेंट की या ह्यूमन राइट्स की। तो ह्यूमन राइट्स में मास के इंटरेस्ट को बात करनी है या फिर सेल्फ के इंटरेस्ट को बात करनी है। सेल्फ और मास का इंटरेस्ट कई बार क्लेश करता दिखाई देता है। भारत के संदर्भ में कई बार इस तरह के विषय आते हैं जब अमेरिका और दूसरे देशों ने उसको ह्यूमन राइट्स वायलेशन का नाम दिया है। कश्मीर का इश्यू होता है, अभी जो बर्मा और उसके आसपास का जो इश्यू है जिसमें मणिपुर मिजोरम में उन जो कुकी लोग आए हुए हैं उनको निकालने की बात सरकार कर रही है, वहां वो ह्यूमन राइट्स का इश्यू आता है। हम नेशनल सिक्योरिटी की बात करें या फिर उन लोगों के मानवाधिकारों की बात करें, सबसे बड़ा जो इस समय क्लेश है वो आइडियोलॉजी को लेकर। अब ये आइडिया और आइडियोलॉजी नेशनल इंटरेस्ट में काम करना चाहिए या ह्यूमन की डिग्निटी को स्ट्रेंथन करने वाली बात हो उसके संदर्भ में होनी चाहिए। तो इस तरह की जो बातें हैं जो डाइवर्सिटी और यूनिटी को लेकर भी होती हैं, इन चीजों के लेकर इस समय पूरा दुनिया एक दोराहे पे खड़ी है और वर्तमान में जो संघर्ष हमें बढ़ता हुआ दिखाई दे रहा है वो किस तरह का स्वरूप लेगा, चाहे वो भारत के नॉर्थ ईस्ट को लेके बात करें या फिर इजराइल की स्थितियों की बात करें या रूस की डोमिनेंस की बात करें या फिर चाइना का जो दूसरे देशों के साथ चल रहा है, चाहे वो एक आर्थिक स्थिति को लेके वो आगे बढ़ रहे हो उनको लेके बात करें, बड़ा चिंतनीय स्थितियां हैं। और ये जो कॉन्फ्रेंस है जो ग्लोबल इश्यू को लेके बातचीत करने के लिए सारे लोग इकट्ठे हुए हैं, तो स्थितियां बड़ी विचित्र हैं। किस निष्कर्ष पर पहुंचा जाए ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण रहने वाला है। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू सो मच डॉक्टर रविंद्र कुमार जी, आपने बहुत अच्छी तरह से चीजों को कवर करा। थैंक यू so much. So now I would like to invite Dr. B.K. Nagla sir for his presidential remarks. Dr. B.K. Nagla sir.
Thank you. He had 7 presentations and they have touched the different aspect of the human rights and social justice, global justice, and covering to the global levels, even comparative study of Europe, and one fellow has given about the German experience. In Indian context also we have a specific experience of Northeast related to the gender and other issues about the humans. And the question was arise, particularly whether human has rights or justice or not. This is very important, and it is a responsibility and how to deal with this. There are many questions arises it, but because of the law passed, because of the time constraint, we are unable to ask the questions, and it is a pressure of the organizer. So sometime your tea break and you can interact with the presenter and you can discuss or you can interact with the solution about the problem which comes to your mind related to the which presented by the different paper presentations. So I am thankful to the presenter and audience also. That audience, I am sorry that I could not give time. Even I am not also taking time to speak because of the constraint. So thank you very much to all, and we are moving towards the valedictory session very soon.
Thank you so much, Dr. B.K. Nagla. Thank you so much, all the panelists, for such a wonderful discussion that we have here on the human rights in the 21st century. And I would really like to thank the audience also for the patience and their humbleness to stay for being staying here. Now I would like now is the time for the valedictory function.
Thank you all our esteemed speakers on the dais. Just a small token of respect to all of you, and we shall be distributing their mementos to each one of you. I would request Professor Pushpraj, Professor Ripudaman, Dr. Avnish, please come forward. Stand in the middle to take the pictures, please.
Can we have some round of applause, please? तालियों की कंजूसी नहीं होनी चाहिए.
नहीं बुलाओगे तो ऐसा ही होगा. Thanks, Veera. Sanjana का phone आ रहा है.
Can we have a round of applause for Professor Shruti ma'am also? She has really worked a lot to make this event a successful one.
फोन बाद में सुनिएगा प्लीज. I know, very busy. Can we have a picture of the entire dais, please?
Guys, can someone click a pic for us?
Come close. Thank you. No is very
Thank you once again to all the panelists for this session, and I would like all the audience to please proceed towards I2 mode court for the valedictory function and the other online audience. Thank you so much for your time to joining with us. Thank you so much, sir.